let's get a basic grounding. Now, I did this presentation a year ago, and actually I spent some time last week looking at what had changed. And the truth is that apart from Elon Musk making a bit of a name for himself in AI, the fact is that a lot has changed. I mean, the technology continues to evolve, but there's been no fundamental breakthrough in artificial intelligence or machine learning or anything that's any different to what it was a year ago. And the same is true of quantum computing, actually. You know, everybody's very excited about quantum computing last year and think it's the next big thing. Again, no massively groundbreaking announcements in the quantum computing field from a year ago. And I think the likelihood is that because we were going through a period with COVID, and you know that's probably our second year, it has slowed down our technological advancements across a number of fronts. SAP is still rubbish, and it hasn't stopped being rubbish since 1972, and we're now 2022, and it still can't add up a bill. I'm going to go on about that all afternoon. I can tell you, Friday they cut my phone off. I was so cross. I mean, you cannot do without a phone, right? Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about it. Right, let's do it on. Okay, so let's just get some terminology clear so that we know what we're talking about. Robotic process automation is probably the simplest thing to talk about. It's what we used to call a screen scraper when we used to read a screen, and we used to populate it with information in an automated way. It was a way of us using IBM mainframes with a personal computer, for example. And that worked perfectly well. And now they've got a sexy new name for it called robotic process automation. And okay, it's a bit better than screen scraping. And some of the more wild claims for it is that it uses artificial intelligence to work out what process you're in and what information to complete. That may well be the case, but it still doesn't know how to stop cutting off a mobile phone when the balance is zero. So, and actually, I know that Vodafone do use RPA, and I told their director's complaints line I was going to do an absolute hatchet job if they didn't get it fixed on Saturday, and they didn't. So I am telling you exactly what I know about Vodafone and their crap systems. Artificial intelligence. So that's an interesting question. A lot of people have defined what artificial intelligence is, and in order to define artificial intelligence, firstly you have to define what intelligence is. And so is a dog intelligent? Well, it's intelligent enough to know when to go for its food. It's intelligent enough to throw that if you throw the ball, it's supposed to bring it back. So there is an element of intelligence in there. And, a dog doesn't understand human speech, and it can't play chess or Go. So, that definition I got off the Wikipedia, actually. I don't think it's a very good definition. I think actually it's pretty awful because it's a very human-centric definition of intelligence. And as I said, a dog can be described as intelligent, or a cat, or indeed any number of animals and primates. But artificial intelligence in this context is the concept where the intelligence is pretending to be human-like. Now, again, on our session in the human side, we'll be looking at some of the things around what artificial intelligence can do, and I'll be asking the question. Yes, it can do that. That's all very exciting. That's very interesting. But is it intelligence? And so we'll come back to that. Digital ledgers. It's basically like a normal ledger, like a ledger that you would get, in the 1850s with lots of writing and adding up columns of numbers. The thing about this is that the underpinning principle of a digital ledger is what they call blockchain. Now, one example of blockchain is Bitcoin, but also another example is non-fungible tokens. Don't get me started on that, because that's another load of total nonsense in my view. But it's all exciting for somebody who's invented it, who's going to make a few $1 million out of it. So well done them. I'm going to come up with some invention one day that is an even more stupid name, and I'm going to make millions of dollars. So let's not suggest that all stupid names are a bad idea. Blockchain is a block of data, and this block of data is cryptographically linked to the previous block of data using a hash. So it has a hash of the timestamp, and it has a hash of the transaction data. And so if anything in that previous block has changed, so somebody has changed the balance of an account or the value of a Bitcoin token or whatever it is, then all of a sudden, when you look into the next block and you and the next block and the next block and the next block, it will no longer add up. It will know the cryptographic hash and the actual block will then be immediately different, and therefore you will know the blockchain has been compromised. Now, in practice, actually, the blockchains are almost impossible to compromise, because your aim is to develop a perfect cryptographic hash that propagates through all the subsequent blocks based on the change that you've made in the block that you want to edit. And of course, the process of doing that and then rehashing them, and they'll all have different timestamps. And it's a clever technology, because it's pretty difficult to beat. And I don't think it's impossible to beat. I don't think any technology is impossible to beat, but certainly in the concept of that's quite a good idea. Blockchain is way up there. Now, again, this was about a year ago. I mean, some people say that Elon Musk is a bit way out there. Well, his musician girlfriend, Mrs. Grimes, sold a digital artwork at auction using NFTs for $6 million. And because the digital asset had a blockchain of non-fungible tokens, then it could be authenticated as unique. Now, I don't think that's very useful. I don't think we really need our digital assets to be defined as unique. I mean, maybe it's a good idea, but personally, I don't want to go to the Louvre and stare at a digital blockchain version of the Mona Lisa. Okay, I think this is all pretty solution looking for a problem to solve, if I'm honest. But as I said, somebody's going to make a shed load of money of it, and it's not me, so maybe I'm just jealous. I don't know. Right, okay. So why do we want to use these? I don't want to use these technologies. Well, competitive advantage, time to market, increased revenue. I mean, these are all the standard lists of why you want to use any technology, whether it was leading edge technology or any technology. But businesses don't care about technology per se, just about results. And businesses generally don't like risk, and very few businesses like going first. And some of those businesses that do go first clean up and own the market. And then quite a lot of businesses that go first have a failure in their leading edge technology and wish they hadn't gone first and chucked X number of $1 million down the bin. So to pick up on something I was saying in the chat. So let's say I've got $20 million to spend this year. And my big problem is that I get 15 million calls a year coming into my coming into my customer care center. Do I look for a root cause analysis as to what those majority of calls are, and try and push them, preempt those calls, or do I spend $20 million on an AI technology called Intelligent Care, and I hope that somehow magically creates solutions to fundamental problems lower down in my architecture. And for the particular company, Vodafone, that we were talking about, it spent its 20 million and more actually on intelligent care. But if the fundamental problem is that it doesn't add up a bill correctly when you do an upgrade, which it's done now not correctly 3 times, it's the 3rd time this has happened. And every time I've been writing to the CIO, it's now called the DCIO, the Digital Chief Information Officer. And this time I've hurled him a load of abuse on LinkedIn. And if he doesn't reply to that, I'm actually going to drive down to Newbury, park in their visitors' car park, go in the front door and tell the reception that I'd like to see him, and hurl some abuse directly at his face, because this is not a problem that they've not known about. And I'm not the only customer suffering from it. So do we think 20 million on AI? Wow, sexy. We can put a YouTube video up saying how advanced we are and how clever we are, or 20 million fixing their SAP system. I would have personally spent it on the SAP system, even though I do know, because I know the Accenture partner who was leading that project for a while, that is an absolute dog's breakfast. And really, it ought to be ripped out and start again. But, there you go. Do that. Don't waste your money on intelligent AI, because that AI is not going to solve any problems. It's not going to make my bill correct. It's just going to do something intelligent. And in fact, in this context, despite watching it was about a 25-minute video on it, I got to the end of the video and I was actually none the wiser as to why it was intelligent or what it was going to do for us. But I will drop a link for that video. I was going to try and get it embedded in here, but it doesn't matter. It's I was going to give you a long explanation about RTMP and how from my studio mixing desk I can direct the results, but we can't do that with this because I have to embed everything in PowerPoint. But anyway, let's not weigh that down with another moan of mine. Right, okay, right. So in 2011, there was a competition of Jeopardy, and I presume everyone will know what Jeopardy is. It's a game in the US that's been played for donkey's years, and excuse me, and it gives you the game is, it gives you the answer and you have to work out what the question is. Like, who is the worst prime minister that Britain has ever had? It'll say Boris Johnson. The answer will be Boris Johnson, and then you'll guess something like, who is the worst prime minister that Britain's ever had? Or who's the bloke who's about to be sacked because he went drinking parties whilst he was banning everyone in the rest of the country from COVID? And, oh my God, we're getting a bit political there. We gotta move left. Right, okay, let's move left. So Watson played the game and he had access to the internet. He I'm using he advisedly, he had access to Wiki, and he was generally able to answer the questions faster than the other two Jeopardy champions. Now, is that intelligence? Well, it's certainly cognitive behavior, because the program was able to take a concept and from this vast database of information work out what the most likely question was going to be against that answer. And it could do it very fast, faster than a human. And so it won. Okay. But is that intelligence? And is it artificial intelligence? Or is it just being able to look up a database, very quickly, and so well done you. Now, so the definition, again, this was another definition I pulled out, which I think is better. The capacity for logic, understanding, self-awareness, learning, emotional knowledge, reasoning, planning, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, I should say, not problem and solving. There's also comprehension, shrewdness, and ego. Now, a program that can that can take two words and create a question out of it by looking at the internet is certainly clever. I don't necessarily agree that it's intelligence in its, in the sense that if you throw the dog for the ball, if you throw the ball for the dog is going to come back and, hang its tongue out and jump up at you or whatever the dogs do. So I tried to find somewhere else where I could figure out what, what this definition of intelligence was. And actually, funny enough, the best answer I got was from a Star Trek Next Generation episode called A Measure of a Man. It was season 2, and Data, if you know Star Trek, Data's life was on the line because Commander Maddox wanted to pull him apart and figure out what made him work. And in the process of pulling him apart, putting him back together again, he couldn't guarantee that if you put him back together again, he'd still work. And Data and Picard and the Star Trek crew objected because Data to them was more than a bits and pieces of circuit boards all plugged together in a robot, in a human-looking robot. And Commander Maddox was asked, it was very, very, very brilliant. It's a brilliant script. And for the 1980s, it was way ahead of its time. He said, so what is Data? Da, da, da. And he said that Data, is sentient because you are conscious of your existence and your actions. You're aware of yourself and your own ego. And then Picard goes on to go, Data, where are you? And he says, I'm sitting in a courtroom on, level 26. And Picard then asks, what are you doing? And Data says, I'm here on trial because I'm not able to leave Star Trek. This is to determine whether I'm a sentient being or whether I'm the property of Starfleet. And it goes on to say, Picard goes on to say, so seems pretty conscious of its existence to me. And so, that this is where it becomes much grayer. We are nowhere near that problem at the moment. And Elon Musk thinks that about 12 years' time, this will be a big problem for us. And I think that's frankly a load of old tosh. And the reason I think it's a load of old tosh is because, we've got some scientists developing AI and they might be very clever. And they might have set the whole Google database, to try and build an intelligent thing. But as I said, the practical examples of AI at the moment are a 25-minute marketing video that can't tell what it's actually doing from Vodafone, the ability to win at Jeopardy by looking at the internet for the answer, big deal. And so far it's been pretty unimpressive. And I think if this even becomes a problem, it's a problem that's probably 2-3 decades away at least. And so we'll see. Right. So this is not. So I've been killing Vodafone because I'm so absolutely peed off with them, and I think they deserve every hammering I give them. In fact, if we have video recording this, I'm going to send them a bloody copy. But last year, it was UPS that got right up my nose. And the commonest example of a quasi-artificial intelligence is a chatbot. And you'll see them everywhere now. So if you go on and say, how do I pay my customs charges? Rather than direct you to a customer services operator, it will give you the instructions, as you can see there on the top left. Now, the problem with that is that almost invariably, they think they've answered the question. So they never give you the option of saying, that didn't answer my question. Can I speak to somebody in customer services who might be able to actually intelligently understand my question? Now, the reason for this was, this example was that I had been, they wouldn't release my package and the invoice for the package was on the package. So I couldn't pay the invoice for the customs charges because I didn't have the invoice. It was actually attached on a sticker to the package. And nobody seemed to be able to know or be able to find out how much the invoice was. And I can sure you can imagine that was about as equally as frustrating as the Vodafone example. And again, what we're looking at here is that the technology goes as far as it can, which in my view is not very far at the moment. Okay, this is, you know, my 5-year-old child could probably do a better job than this. But the problem with it is that the processes that companies build up around these AI systems assume they are a lot smarter than they are. So, you know, when I said to Vodafone's IVR, it's Paraphonics, I think, but I'm not absolutely sure. I've got a billing error. It said, oh, pay your bill. Actually, your phone has been restricted. Would you like to pay off your balance now? No, it didn't even say that. We're going to transfer you to our automated payment system so that you pay off your balance. The problem was there was no balance, but I couldn't talk to anyone because there was no way of navigating around that AVR route to get that took me straight to automated payment center. And that's nothing to do with AI being good or bad. It's about a human being who's thinking up the process, not living the process, not thinking it through. And this happens time and time and time and time again. So when you are developing these processes, you know, be a human being. Think about, you know, don't think about cutting down call volumes, because all you'll do is drop your customer care, customer satisfaction stats. Think about how, if that hasn't turned out as you expected, what's the next thing the human is going to want to do? And unfortunately, it seems that anyone in IT or anyone in the departments who think these things up lose all sense of being a human being, and start to become this goal-centric person who wants the process to reduce the call volumes by 10 million. Well, good luck with that. But by the way, the quickest way to reduce your call volumes by 10 million is to have 9 million fewer customers. And as I said, certain companies, the rate they're going, that's exactly what's going to happen to them. Okay, so invoice automation is one of the first examples of artificial intelligence. And the idea was to scan and OCR an invoice and then be able to pull out from that the key attributes of the invoice, convert that to text, and populate the ERP. By and large, that technology, we're done and dusted with that. Oh, it's perfectly. But as with anything, you know, in 2001, when I think this was first brought out, the hit rate on this was appalling. Now the hit rate is, you know, usually 99% good or better. Go to the chatbot or to the IVR, their hit rates are appalling. So again, we've probably got 20 years before I think the systems are going to be mature enough to be left alone to play on their own. So, okay, right. So this is an Accenture. Oh God, I know I'm using an Accenture diagram, and they're another company I wouldn't use with a 1 trillion-foot barge pole, but there we are. I used to work for them as well. So if we go along this kind of frontier technologies map, okay, I mean, fly-by-wire financial management, blockchain-enabled ecosystems, AI, CPA, yada, yada, yada. I mean, yeah, probably there are companies doing this. This investment banks, I suspect, have got some of this technology in. But you go back down here, you know, most of us are happy with a SaaS-based system, self-service reporting, driver-based planning, which for FP&A is very important. Some companies have got some embryonic examples of AI and machine learning, but frankly, it's pretty unsophisticated and pretty noddy. Statistical forecasting is used in demand planning and management, as is predictive and demand management. But as you go further to the right, you're getting more and more outside of the mainstream, and more to use those who are really prepared to spend a load of money and have it wasted. Now, some of these, like centralized transaction level data, wow, what a concept that is. That's a really, really new emerging technology that we didn't have in 1970 when we had MBS and KICS. Okay, so some of this is, as I said, computing is a big cycle. Okay, we go centralized, distributed, centralized, distributed, centralized. And, we did open systems. Then everybody didn't think that was a very good idea. And so now we're back to huge centralized systems, except they're now on Google, or they're on Oracle Cloud, or they're on Microsoft. Okay, but they're still centralized transaction level systems. And KICS was a very, very good one, actually. And I mourn its reduction.